Hello, this is Judy, and for the next hour, I will be reading from the March 23rd, 2026 issue of the Toronto Star on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. I will do my best to pronounce all names and words correctly, yet please forgive me if I do not. And here's our first article, and it's under the Canada section. The title is Air Canada LaGuardia Crash. Photos show heavy damage, aftermath of fatal runway collision. 2 pilots are dead, and dozens of others are in the hospital in the late night crash. And this is written by Alicia Wang, who is a staff reporter. 2 Air Canada pilots are dead after a jet crashed into a runway fire truck at New York's LaGuardia Airport late Sunday night. 41 people have been taken to the hospital out of the plane's 72 passengers and 4 crew members, said Catherine Garcia, executive director of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, at a press conference early Monday morning. 2 officials in the fire truck, a sergeant and police officer, are in stable condition with no critical injuries. Air Canada Express Flight AC 8646, a route that travels between Montreal's Trudeau International Airport and LaGuardia, landed in New York a little before midnight Sunday, with the collision occurring around 11:40 p.m. Audio from an air traffic control app indicates that the truck was initially cleared to cross the runway before the controller can be heard saying, "Stop, Truck 1, stop, stop, Truck 1, stop." LaGuardia Airport will remain closed to all flights until at least 2 p.m. today. A phone line for friends and family of passengers on board has been set up by Air Canada. The Port Authority said that the aircraft rescue and firefighting vehicle was responding to a separate incident on runway 4 involving a United Airlines flight that had reported an unpleasant odor. The airplane involved was a Jazz Aviation Mitsubishi CRJ-900. And this report was written with files from Danya Yacob, YAQOOB, and the Associated Press. And Alicia Wang is a staff reporter with the Toronto Star. She can be reached at her email, which is ALICIAWANG at symbol THESTAR.ca. Our next article is also under Canada, and the title is Black Canadians More Likely to Skip or Delay Taking Prescribed Medicine Because They Can't Afford It, Study Finds. Black adults were about 75% more likely to delay or forgo filling prescriptions or stretch their medications because of costs, the researchers found. Even when mediating factors such as income and education were considered, Black people were still more likely to skip out on or delay a prescription refill because it's expensive. And this article is written by Dasha Loppie, Loppie, who is a staff reporter. Black adults in Canada are significantly more likely than white adults to skip or delay taking prescribed medications because they can't afford them, a new study has found. The study, published in the Canadian Medical Association Journal, which is CMAG, on Monday, reported that Black adults were about 75% more likely to delay or forgo filling prescriptions or stretch their medications because of the cost. For Black Canadians, who already face higher rates of certain conditions like cardiovascular disease and diabetes, inconsistent access to prescribed treatment can mean a greater likelihood of hospitalization, said Dr. Boloka Salami, SALAMI, a senior author on the study. The findings also highlight a reality where a lack of adequate housing and drug coverage can affect the health of Black people across the country, the researchers noted. The statistic demonstrates how unfair the health system is, said Dr. Kwame McKenzie, CEO of the Wellesley Institute, a nonprofit organization that works in research and policy to improve health and health equity. Why should we have a segment of the population really not able to take their drugs? The CMAJ study analyzed data from Statistics Canada's National Canadian Community Health Survey from 2015 to 2022, excluding 3 years because of limited data, which surveyed Black and white people ages 18 years and older who reported having a prescription medication in the previous 12 months. Respondents to the survey included 2,997 Black and 514,000 white adults. Multiple choice questions were asked, such as, during the last 12 months, was there a time when you did not fill or collect a prescription for medication, or you skipped doses of your medicine because of the cost? What the study found. The study found that many Canadians skip, delay, or stretch prescriptions because of the cost. But Black adults were particularly affected. Even after accounting for factors like income, education, and employment, Black adults were still likely to not take prescribed medications because of cost. While prescription medication insurance coverage reduced the likelihood of skipping or delaying medications, the studies show Black adults were also less likely to have that coverage. The study can help us not just say anti-Black racism exists in employment, but may also be influencing drug coverage and ability to improve their health, said Salami, who's also the Tier 1 Research Chair in Black and Radicalized People's Health at the University of Calgary's Cummings School of Medicine. Contributing factors. According to the study, Canada is the only high-income country with a public health insurance program that does not provide universal coverage for prescription medications. Ontario has the lowest spending amounts on healthcare and medication in Canada compared to other provinces. The Ontario Health Insurance Plan Plus covers more than 5,900 medications, but only if you are 24 years or younger and not covered by a private plan. The other option is private insurance, often offered by employers. But the unemployment rate in Black communities is higher compared to the total racialized population and total Canadian population. Previous studies show Black individuals were also more likely to be precariously employed. The majority of the Black population doesn't have enough money to live a healthy life, including being able to pay for their prescriptions, said McKenzie. According to a Wellesley Institute report, only 26% of the total Black population in the GTA have the money to live a healthy life, and Black people are more likely to live in poverty in Canada. McKenzie said people stretched thin financially are often looking for what they can control when it comes to spending. They come to the conclusion that spending money on that drug isn't the most important thing, said McKenzie. As affordability becomes more of a problem, I think we'll see even fewer people filling their prescriptions. That will mean people's health outcomes will get worse and worse. Salami said there should be a push for equity-focused policy changes around prescription medication coverage to improve the health outcomes for Black people in Canada. An ounce of prevention is worth a ton of cures, said McKenzie. If we can make sure people get the treatment they need, we can prevent really bad outcomes that don't only devastate individuals and their family, but the community. Dasha Lopi is a staff reporter with the Toronto Star. You can reach her at her email, which is DLOPPIE@TORSTAR.ca. Our next article is under the Quebec section, and the title is Top Court to Hear Arguments on Quebec Secularism Law Use of Notwithstanding Clause. Legal experts say that the arguments will center on the criteria for for suspending rights more than on state secularism. And this article is written by the Canadian Press. Ottawa. A challenge of Quebec's secularism law, known as Bill 21, will be heard at the Supreme Court of Canada beginning today, with the notwithstanding clause at the heart of arguments. The case stems from a law passed in June 2019 by the Quebec government led by François Legault, Legault, which banned certain public sector workers, including teachers, police officers, and judges, from wearing religious symbols on the job in the name of state neutrality. The Coalition Avenir Quebec government preemptively invoked the notwithstanding clause of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms to shield the law from most court challenges over fundamental rights violations. Legal experts say the arguments will center on the criteria for suspending rights more than on state secularism. Or is it secularism? Quebec Superior Court and the Quebec Court of Appeal have mostly sided with the provincial government in its rulings, while also criticizing how the government has employed the notwithstanding clause. Groups including the National Council of Canadian Muslims, the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, and the World Sikh Organization will meet with reporters today ahead of the hearings, which are expected to run 4 days. Article by the Canadian Press. The next article title is, and it's under City Hall. The title is Olivia Chow wants to ban ICE agents during FIFA World Cup in Toronto. Canada is expected to draw 1 million visitors, including athletes, coaches, officials, volunteers, and fans. And this article is written by Ghada Al-Sharif, and that's GhadaAlsharif, who's an immigration and work reporter. Mayor Olivia Chow has put forward a new motion to City Council to oppose the involvement of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, in Toronto during the FIFA World Cup. ICE has demonstrated through their actions in Minnesota and across the U.S. that they bring fear and disorder, not safety and security. Chow said in her motion on Friday, any ICE presence in Ontario is liable to create fear during a time when we want to welcome the world and ensure that everyone feels safe. The 2026 edition of the FIFA World Cup will have 48 nations competing, the largest grouping since the competition was launched in 1930, when only 16 countries participated. Canada is expected to draw 1 million visitors, including athletes, coaches, officials, volunteers, and fans. Toronto will host 6 games on June 12th, June 17th, June 20th, June 23rd, and June 26th, along with a knockout game on July 2nd in the round of 32. Vancouver will also host 5 opening round games at BC Place, plus 1 game in the round of 32 and 1 in the round of 16. The tournament will start on July 11th at Estadio Azteca in Mexico City and wrap up on July 19th with the championship game at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. The proposal requests the Federal Minister of Public Safety and Minister of Foreign Affairs to reject any ICE deployment in Toronto. Excuse me. Our city is going to welcome thousands of visitors from across the globe to participate in the FIFA World Cup, which should be a time to celebrate everything that brings us together, the mayor said. Residents and visitors should be able to enjoy our city without fear. Chow's motion comes amid a wave of scrutiny over ICE crackdowns in the U.S., drawing the ire of residents south of the border as immigration operations in Minnesota have upended the city and escalated protests, especially after the killing of protester Alex Preddy and the second fatal shooting by federal officers. According to ICE's website, the agency has established outposts in 5 Canadian cities: Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, Montreal, and Ottawa. Immigration experts have said the offices are not authorized to carry out independent investigations or carry out immigration enforcement. Ganda Asharif is a Toronto-based immigration and work reporter for The Star. You can reach her at her email, which is galsharif@symbol torstar.ca. The next article is under provincial politics, and the title is Doug Ford Moves to Seize Control of Billy Bishop Airport. On Monday, Ford announced Queen's Parks was usurping the City of Toronto's place on the tripartite agreement that governs the island airfield. And this article is written by Robert Benzie of the Queen's Park Bureau. My Way and Runway, or the Highway. That's Premier Doug Ford's message to the lefties on the City Council as the province moves to take over Billy Bishop Toronto City Airport. On Monday, Ford announced Queen's Park was usurping the City of Toronto's place on the tripartite agreement that governs the island airfield in order to expand the runway so jets can land. This is long overdue, he told reporters in an aircraft hangar near the passenger terminal. Ford also said the province plans to designate the airport a special economic zone using powers under Bill 5 to expedite construction of the airport by streamlining approvals while maintaining robust safety and environmental protections. Transportation Minister Prabhat Sarkaria, and that's Sarkaria, said the construction would take several years. The province will be tabling legislation to formalize its move within days. Ford's announcement comes as Councillor Ashma Malik, Malik, who is of Spadina and Fort York, is asking City Council to formally oppose Ford's move to expropriate land to expand Billy Bishop. Malik wants Council to oppose any unilateral expropriation of city land by higher levels of government. Any significant decisions on the future of Toronto's waterfront must include Torontonians, reads her council motion, which was seconded by Mayor Olivia Chow. Billy Bishop is governed by a tripartite agreement composed of the federal government, the federally mandated Toronto Port Authority, and the city, each of which owns a portion of the airport land. But Ford can effectively override any veto from City Council because the municipality is a creature of the province and is governed under the City of Toronto Act. And this is a developing story. This next article is under GTA, and the title is The Cost of this City Project Has More Than Tripled, and it's now more than 5 years overdue. One Toronto councillor wants answers. The controversial drop-in center for homeless women is due to open in the former headquarters for Craig and Mark Kielburger's Free the Children charity on Carleton Street. And this article is written by Asha Hashman, and that's Hasham of the City Hall Bureau. A 24-hour women's drop-in center was supposed to open in 2021 after about $3.7 million in renovation work was done at the Cabbagetown building. Instead, the former headquarters for Craig and Mark Kielburger's Free the Children charity at 233 Carleton Street East remains empty, while the city has paid more than $2 million in rent and construction costs have ballooned to $13.5 million. The opening date is tentatively set for late 2026, a city spokesperson said on Friday. Now, the local Toronto councillor wants answers, saying his office and city council were not informed of the significant cost increases, which were revealed in Freedom of Information requests reported on by community news outlet The Bridge in February. These cost overruns are completely unacceptable, said Councillor Chris Moyes of the Toronto Centre in an email to the Star after he put an administrative inquiry and motion on the upcoming council agenda released Friday. He remains unsure if the site is actually on track to open this year. Since 2023, my office and I keep asking when this site will open, and each time we've been told by city staff that it would be this year, so until we get better information, it's impossible to say, he added. Councilor asked for rule changes. In addition to a flurry of questions for city staff to answer, Moyes is asking to change the rules so that the city's real estate management department would have to report to council when construction and leasing costs on a project exceed $10 million. Projects below that amount don't need council sign-off through what is known as delegated approval, and there is no mechanism to trigger reports when the amount exceeds the threshold through cost-run overrides. This motion does not propose changes to the delegated authority itself, Moyes' member motion states. Instead, it seeks to ensure a higher standard of transparency and accountability going forward. Moyes would also like to know if the city could purchase or expropriate the property. On a gray, rainy Friday morning, no active work was visible from the outside of 233 Carlton, though its front door was sealed off with plywood and blue waterproofing material. Covering the 3 panes of windows on the ground floor is a vibrant mural showing women or girls embracing one another, sharing food, and in one case, reviewing a paper marked with an A+ grade. The nearly 13,000 square foot location, which is supposed to replace the Fred Victor operated Adeline Women's Resource Center and have up to 32 overnight spaces, was controversial from the start. The city entered a 10-year lease with the option for a 5-year extension for $6 million in 2019 without council or community input. The process known as delegated approval permitted the transaction without council approval since, with a $3.7 million renovation cost, it was under $10 million. Deal reviewed earlier over costs. Council asked for a review of the deal in 2020 over concerns that lease and renovation costs, even then, far exceeded the site's 2004 purchase price of $1.47 million. The building is owned by a numbered company registered to Fred and Teresa Kielburger, the parents of Mark and Craig. The council order review also came as a Kielburger's W.E. charity, formerly known as Free the Children, was embroiled in a scandal over the approval of a $544 million grant program for summer student volunteers amid close ties to then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's family. John Tory, who was the mayor at the time, said he had no role in the 233 Carlton lease negotiation. Tory also has close ties to the Kielburgers, including being a witness at Craig Kielburger's wedding, Canadian reported. The staff review of the lease negotiation released in September 2020 concluded it was done with due diligence and negotiated terms and conditions that are fair, reasonable, and at market. The location was chosen because it is close to the original drop-in center and easy to access on public transit, the city has said. In a statement on Friday, a city spokesperson cited industry-wide construction pressures and unforeseen site conditions for the opening delays and said construction is ongoing. Among the issues the building's renovation has faced in the past 5 years is a delay in parts for an elevator in the main lobby that is integral to accessing the entire building and required for it to open. And this article is written with files from Victoria Gibson. And Asha Hashman is a Toronto-based reporter covering City Hall and municipal politics for The Star. You can reach her at her email, which is ahasham@symbol THESTAR.ca. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Toronto Star on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. And our next article is under sports, and it's The Star in Florida. Title: Blue Jays announce contract extensions for John Schneider and Ross Atkins. Manager John Schneider will get a 2-year extension, while General Manager Ross Atkins has agreed to a 5-year deal. And this article is written by Rosie DiManno, and that's Dimanno, who's a Star columnist staff reporter. And this article is written from Dunedin, Florida. A team of bottom-up success last year has taken care of business at the top for several years to come. General Manager Ross Atkins and Manager John Schneider have been locked in with contract extensions, 5 and 2 years respectively, the Toronto Blue Jays announced Monday morning. Both had just 1 year left on their deals before the extensions. Schneider, 46, led the Blue Jays last season to the team's 3rd American League championship last fall and came heartbreakingly close to the franchise's first World Series title since 1993. He has led the Blue Jays to a 303 to 257 record, which is .541. The 4th most wins amongst managers in franchise history since taking over in 2022. I am ecstatic to continue leading the Blue Jays as we work to bring our incredible fans a championship team, Schneider said in a statement. It's been a privilege to be part of this organization for nearly 25 years, and the work the Blue Jays continue to do excites me every day. Atkins, 52, joined the Blue Jays in December 2015, and the team has a 777 to 741 .512 record with 5 postseason appearances, which was in 2016, 2020, 2022, 2023, and 2025 during his tenure. Ross has done an outstanding job in building a deep foundation with an accomplished baseball operations team, best-in-class resources, and a collaborative culture, Team President Mark Sharpio said in a statement. It's easy for me to believe in Ross, as I've seen him transition from player to young front office executive to established MLB executive, and I am extremely confident his leadership will help us achieve our collective goal of bringing World Series championships back to Canada. Atkins is the 7th general manager in franchise history, behind only Pat Glowkick in tenure, which was 1978 to 1994. The Blue Jays opened their 50th season on Friday night at home against the Oakland Athletics. And Rosie DiManno is a Toronto-based columnist covering sports and current affairs for the Star. This next article is under personal finance, and the title is From Groceries to Gas to Travel. The Iran conflict is driving up cost. Here's how to protect your pocketbook. And it says Canadians should brace for increased pressure in these key areas. And this article is written by Laura Grady, who is a personal finance reporter. Canadians are starting to feel the strain on their wallets amid the conflict in Iran and the disruption of the crucial Strait of Hormuz shipping route. And experts say financial pressures could worsen in the coming months. Higher oil prices could lead to increased costs for Canadians everywhere, which means paying more at gas pumps, grocery stores, and on travel. Here's how experts say you can mitigate the impact of increased costs in key areas. First, on gas prices. As of Friday, gas prices hit a national average of $1.68 a liter, according to CAA, and analysts say the price could soon reach $2.15 to $2.20 a liter. It's painful, no doubt, said Douglas Porter, chief economist at BMO Financial Group. It's possible that oil and gas prices could come back down quickly in the weeks ahead, Porter said, should disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz ease. In the meanwhile, certified financial planner and financial advisor Jackie Porter suggests using apps such as Gas Buddy to find the best prices for gas and fill up when you find a good deal. Now is also an opportune time to take advantage of loyalty rewards programs that allow you to earn points to spend on gas. You can reduce your vehicle's fuel usage by roughly 20% if you drive at 100 kilometers per hour instead of 120 kilometers per hour on the highway, according to CAA. You can also save gas by keeping your tires properly inflated, abiding by your car's maintenance schedule for engine oil changes and filter replacements. A poorly maintained vehicle can use up to 25% more gas, and removing unnecessary weight like bike racks not in use from your car. Grocery prices. The food industry requires a lot of energy, said Sylvain Charbois, and that's CHARLEBOIS, director of the Agri-Food Analytics Lab at Dalhousie University. Whenever oil prices surge, he says, you'll see increases in food prices across the board. Heavy products are mostly impacted, Charbois said. Meat, dairy, and liquids tend to be more impacted by energy costs than other categories. The cost of imported fruits and vegetables could also rise as the cost to transport produce in trucks increases. On April 1st, the industrial carbon price will increase to $110 per metric ton from $95, which Charbois says will impact the entire supply chain and eventually lead to higher retail prices. If crude remains quite high, we're lining ourselves up for a double whammy here, Charbois said, adding that we could see food inflation at around 6% for quite some time. If the conflict continues, he estimated groceries will cost a family of four an extra $300 to $400 this year. Charbois said Canadians can find savings at small independent grocers. They tend to be cheaper because they work the supply chain very differently. Maximize food savings by keeping an eye on weekly flyer details and comparing prices between grocery stores with apps like Flip and Gopher. And it's GOFER, and it's FLIPP. Airfare. Canadians are already seeing the effects of higher oil prices in the air travel industry, says John Gradek, head of the Aviation Management Program at McGill University. Air Transit has added higher fuel surcharges on flights to Europe, while Air Canada and WestJet indicated that their prices may also soon change. The price of fuel has gone up 30 to 40%, and fuel represents about 30% of the cost of your flight, Gradek explains. Every flight is losing money, so the question is, how long can the airlines hang around losing money day to day? Airfare to Europe could go up around $100 to $200, Gradek says. The closure of airspace in the Middle East is affecting flight routes, also impacting air travel costs. A flight between Mondami and Toronto is taking 2 to 2.5 hours longer, bringing an extra 2 hours of fuel. Gradek estimates Canadians could see increased charges of $200 to $300 for flights to the Indian subcontinent and Southeast Asia. Now that March break is over, Gradek says, the airlines are in a season of low demand until Victoria Day, which means fuel surcharges on domestic flights may be delayed. My thinking right now is that the Canadian carriers will stay away from significant increases in fuel surcharges for the next 2 or 3 months, he says. We may see surcharges of $20 to $30 over the next couples of months, but if the conflict continues through May and June, those charges will likely increase to $50 to $100, he adds. Unfortunately, booking summer flights in advance may not protect you from expensive fuel surcharges, Gradek says. Given the high cost of gas, Canadians may want to delay travel plans and look for fun experiences within their own communities this summer. Mortgage rates. While the Bank of Canada held its overnight interest rate at 2.25% on Wednesday. The 5-year fixed mortgage rate has jumped in response to the surge in oil prices and inflation risk. The longer the war in Iran lasts, the higher the price per barrel, which means increased inflation, pushing up Canadian government bond yields, which translates to higher fixed mortgage rates. A month ago, you could get a 3-year fixed mortgage rate for 3.69%, and now that's closer to 3.94%, which is significant, says Ron Butler, principal broker at Butler Mortgage. For those whose mortgages are up for renewal in late May, June, or later, there's a possibility of even higher rates. When you combine that with the price at the pumps going up, then that's tough on affordability, Butler says. Canadians who currently have renewal notices should act immediately. If they've had any sort of an offer from their bank of early renewal and the rate is a fixed rate below 4%, they should take it, Butler says. Electronics, furniture, and clothing prices. Ongoing conflict in Iran will increase prices across the retail sector, says Andre Cyr, and that's Cire, an associate professor in the Department of Management at the University of Toronto. I don't think there is one product nowadays that doesn't depend on oil in one way or the other, Cyr says. Most clothing today is made with synthetic materials that are derived from petrochemicals, such as polyester, which means the price of oil will have a direct impact on the cost of clothing. The price of electronics is also likely to rise, Cyr says. Helium, a byproduct of natural gas production, is used to make memory chips. Cyr, who also researches transportation, points out that because many ships are being rerouted, freight costs could go up. Consumers who want to save money on textiles and electronics should look to secondhand markets and retailers that sell refurbished goods. If you're thinking about making a big purchase, such as a new sofa or TV for the living room, Cyr suggests buying now rather than waiting, as prices may increase in the coming weeks. Energy bills. In response to the ongoing crisis, countries such as Japan are taking measures to save on natural gas. More than 80% of the liquefied natural gas, LNG, that passed through the Strait of Hormuz in 2024 went to Asia, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. While prices have gone up a bit here, says Doug Porter, Canada is a bit more insulated than other countries when it comes to natural gas prices. It's not in the same league as what we've seen for oil and gasoline prices, he says. Natural gas prices could be going crazy in Europe, like they are, without really having much effect here in North America, because it's not really a world market for natural gas. Market volatility. Surging oil prices often cause market volatility, which can cause panic among investors. People who try to time the market end up being the biggest losers, Jackie Porter says. She points out that many people withdrew investments during the crash in 2020 only for the market to rebound months later. It's important to be mindful of your long-term goals, she says. During periods of market volatility, she adds, you should avoid making decisions that could potentially cost you money that you can't get back when the market recovers. While the rapid increase of oil and gas prices is a pretty important shock for the global economy, Doug Porter says, it is entirely possible that things will come back down relatively quickly. If that's not the case, he said, Canadians lived through a serious shock 4 years ago when gas prices went up to more than $2 per liter and oil went up to $120 a barrel. The economy shouldered through that, Porter said, adding that he doesn't think that what's happening in Iran now calls for dramatic changes in Canadian spending decisions or savings behavior. Be just a little bit more cautious and aware of what's going on. Laura Grady is a personal finance reporter for The Star. You can reach her at her email, which is lgrady at symbol THESTAR.ca. This next article is also in the business section, and it's an opinion article. The rise of revenge saving. Here's how Canadians are hitting the reset on their money. And this article is written by Leslie Ann Scorgie, Scorgie, who's a contributing columnist. And she's a Toronto-based personal finance columnist and freelance contributing columnist for The Star. It sounds angry, but it's not. In a world defined by economic, personal, and global uncertainty, many Canadians are turning to a new financial behavior, revenge saving. It's the intentional decision to save more aggressively after a period of feeling financially stretched or out of control. For many, it's both a financial and emotional reset. We've seen this before. During the pandemic, Canadians boosted savings in response to uncertainty. The lesson this time, do it better. Moderation matters. When times are uncertain, saving more money is always a good strategy, but cutting everything out isn't. Extreme frugality can create a lasting sense of financial doom and chronic money anxiety. Many Canadians learned this during the pandemic. Moderation with saving and spending remains the most sustainable path forward and encourages the habit of consistency, which is the most important habit to create financial security. It begins with slowing down. While others are rushing to upgrade their lifestyle by downsizing or renovating their house, leasing a new car, or booking expensive trips, taking a financial pause can pay off. Take a beat. You can better assess needs versus wants when you have a bit of space. Revenge saving, at its core, is about regaining control while the world spins madly around us. Small habits work and create a big impact. Financial therapists and money coaches often recommend daily savings to help navigate financial anxiety. A simple $5 a day, equivalent to a daily coffee or gym membership, transferred into a high-yield interest savings account may not seem like a lot, but it quickly adds up. Clients I've worked with who practice daily savings often increase their contributions after seeing the balance grow. This daily habit can be applied to debt too. Start by reviewing your recent spending patterns. What added value to your life? What didn't? A clear budget will also help you understand what you can afford to spend and what you could be saving. Examine the essentials too, like housing, groceries, and transportation. Though more fixed in nature, they can often evolve over time. Cutting back on low-value spending, things like frequent takeout, unused subscriptions, can free up substantial cash flow. Other habits to work on include the art of negotiation and honing your price comparison radar. During the pandemic, many Canadians become price conscious. Shopping, sales and flyers, comparing options, and haggling for better deals. Keeping that mindset today, especially as inflation appears to be about to wreak havoc again, can stretch your dollars further. Rethink big-ticket decisions and potentially do the exact opposite. Before committing to major expenses, take a step back. Does the purchase still make sense in today's environment? Has your financial situation changed? Is the timing right? Can it wait? If the answer is uncertain, waiting can be a smart move. Prices for large purchases, furniture, appliances, vehicles, flights, have fluctuated significantly in recent years. Delaying a purchase or exploring secondhand options can lead to substantial savings. And if you do move forward, look for opportunities. Businesses often offer incentives during slower periods, which can reduce costs. Flip this strategy on its head and ask yourself if you could potentially sell anything of value, like the recumbent bike you bought during the pandemic and are not using, adding these proceeds to your savings. Perhaps you could take on extra shifts, relaunch your online course, or earmark the entirety of your tax refund towards savings. Save steadily, but don't stop living your life. Stats show the better you feel emotionally, the more likely you'll make stronger financial decisions. During uncertainty, it's important to save, but not at the expense of your mental health. Find wise, frugal ways to enjoy your life. Spend moderately on what matters to you. Avoid unnecessary credit or excess. Paying with cash or debt can help keep spending grounded and prevent costly interest charges. Let the world spin and do what it's going to do. Control what you can and don't abandon your savings habits. Even if you scale back on them temporarily, consistently matters. Brick by brick, this pile of cash will become the foundation of your emergency fund. Keep adding to it over time until you reach a 3 to 6 months of essential expenses. This can take a few years, but stick with it. Your financial anxiety level will thank you. This next article is in the Life section, and the title is Her Mother Was One of the Youngest Holocaust Survivors. Now, this Toronto woman is shining light on inherited trauma. This is Audrey Hams, Hyams, Romoff's, Romoff story of parental loss and resilience in the face of generational tragedies. And this article is written by Leanne Delap, DELAP, and so special to the Star. A central tragedy, the deaths of both her parents in a double suicide, open and closes Audrey Hams Romoff's memoir. The longtime Toronto publicist begins the ripple eclipse, turning the tide of inherited trauma by taking us through the day up until this happened, and ends the book with the leaden and stunned immediate aftermath of it. In between, she explores the real inciting incident, which took place many decades earlier. Her mother and grandmother were Holocaust survivors, and the ways they coped with that experience trickled down through the generations of her family. Hyams Romoff beautifully sews together her family's story with hard-won insights about how to exist with and move on from such a formative trauma. Most of Toronto's fashion and entertainment media know Hyams Romoff through her publicity work with the stars such as Jennifer Lopez, Katy Perry, and Amanda Brugel, who calls the book brave, pure, and unflinching, and high-profile brands including Longines, Estee Lauder, and Victoria's Secret. She is someone who radiates warmth and extreme competence in even the highest wire professional settings, even while dealing with personal anguish, and she brings to the memoir too, including the behind-the-scenes stories of barely avoided disasters and celebrity hijinks. It took Hyams Romoff a long time to get this book to market. I'm not a celebrity, nor am I 32 with a massive Instagram following, she said, but trauma is something we all understand. Opening wounds backed up in order to write about them wasn't easy. My life was bisected into the before and after my parents' death, Hyams Romoff said. During the acute stage of grief, she said, I was a human zombie a lot of time, drinking and not sleeping, just sleepwalking through life. I had a husband and kids, and I had to come back to life. I had a business, and the only way to continue was putting one step in front of the other. She shares her many realizations about her mother's experience, how her mother's experience shaped her own identity, and how trauma is inherited in families, figuratively and quite literally. Researchers have studied Holocaust survivors with post-traumatic stress disorder and their children and found this epigenetic changes, alterations to stress-related genes, and increased cortisol are passed down through generations. There are universal themes here, but Hyams Romoff's family story is unique. My mother was one of the youngest survivors of Auschwitz, she said, a terrible and wonderful distinction. Her mother was driven by fear her whole life and developed a desire for control and response. It wasn't easy for her eldest daughter to live with. It was such a complicated relationship. I spent years running away from it, avoiding it, she said. Sharing my mother's story and how it affected me gives people permission to talk about their own struggles. In retelling her mother's final days, Chaim Romov reassesses and reflects on the signs of what was about to come, the ways her manic and volcanic behavior had shifted. She just didn't want to be here anymore. Both Chaim Romov's grandmother and mother recorded their testimony for Steven Spielberg's Shoah Foundation. And her mother's story was part of the 1998 book called Kinderlager about childhood Holocaust survivors. The version of the book was somehow sanitized, she said. My mother became very depressed after it came out. While researching her own book, Chaim Romov obtained the original transcript of her mother's interview and was able to listen to her story in her own words. I found out that she knew she was out of control and was trying, unsuccessfully, to harness her emotions. The triggers kept coming back, and her mother would begin the same battle over and over again. Chaim Romov concentrates on the matrilineal line in her memoir. What made her determined to break the cycle of trauma following her parents' death was seeing how it affected her daughter Lindsay, who had her own private struggles. Her husband and son, who was just 14 at the time, are not as much a focus in the book. As part of their efforts to process, Audrey and Lindsay traveled to Auschwitz together with a PBS filmmaker. I had thought for so long that I had such a normal childhood, because that was all I knew, Audrey said. But at the scene, she realized how compartmentalized her whole life had been. My mother, my grandmother, never talked about Holocaust, and yet it was the heart of every behavior, every action. Part of them never left here. She recounts at one time she and her mother went to therapy together. It was a disaster for her mother and a revelation for her. Parentification, when a child is compelled into an adult role, is a painful concept. My mother couldn't take it in, but it gave Audrey perspective on her own life and the fiercely independent, rebellious, and driven path she had forged in Toronto, far from the shadow of her mother in Montreal. Still, there are no neat resolutions. How can you possibly make sense of everything that happened in my mother's life, in my life? You can't tie all that up in a pretty bow and make it go away, but you can get better and stronger, she said. People ask her if writing the book was cathartic. It was not, she said firmly. I am not sure that I will ever be okay. But you know what? That's okay. And Leanne DeLapp is a Toronto-based freelance contributor for The Star, where she writes about fashion and culture. Our last article today is under GTA, and the title is Dolly Parton, Diefenbaker, Ossington. Are these Toronto's most unique dog names? In a city with millions of humans and hundreds of thousands of four-legged friends, The Star endeavored to find some of the more interesting names. And this article is written by Mark Coley, who's a staff reporter. By some estimates, there are 300,000 dogs in Toronto and many thousands more in the GTA. In all likelihood, there is only one Diefenbaker. He is an incredibly friendly 8 or 9-year-old boxer mix with a gray muzzle and low-hanging jowls, and he lives in Thornhill with his owners Barry Torch and Frank Comer. And yes, he is named after Canada's 13th Prime Minister, John Diefenbaker. And that's Diefenbaker. Torch and his husband don't know much of Diefenbaker's progressive conservative politics. That's not why they chose the name. It is because Torch is a historian and lover of puns, and Cormier specializes in heritage buildings and is fascinated by Avro Arrow, a program Diefenbaker canceled. And with those low-hanging jowls, they think Diefenbaker kind of looks like the man himself. Toronto, home to many millions of humans and plenty of four-legged friends, has its share of unique dog names. Around 47,000 canines are licensed officially with the city, and city staff estimated in 2024 that perhaps 5 times that amount were unregistered. The Star asked the city for the most popular and least popular licensed dog names in 2025, a list which includes all new and renewing licenses. There are 10,525 unique license names, including 19 variations of Daisy, 6 different plays on Oreo, and 3 thes: the Dingo, the Dude, and the Queen. The 5 most popular names are Luna, Charlie, Bella, Coco, and Milo. But there is little to be learned by following the pack. Instead, we set out to find the owners of the most uniquely named dogs in and around Toronto. Diefenbaker is one of them. Most people don't understand. Diefenbaker was not the most well-known Canadian Prime Minister we've had, George, but among those who recognize the name, laughter instantly. The same is true for Teresa Hume Johnson, who owns an 8-year-old bull terrier named Derek Jeter. His namesake is the famed New York Yankees shortstop and 5-time World Series champion, who was inducted nearly unanimously into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 2020. Young Johnson's husband is a Yankees fan and an even bigger Jeter fan, so the name was set. But living in downtown Toronto with a dog, adorable as he may be, named after a division rival who inflicted years of pain upon the city, can sometimes be perilous. Young Johnson's mother loves the Blue Jays. It is safe to say she was not happy with her son-in-law's choice of name. She was like, "I cannot believe it," young Johnson recalled, when Derek Jeter is watching baseball at young Johnson's parents' house. He wears a Blue Jays jersey. There is also Ossington, a very affectionate, very loud English golden retriever in the beaches. Kin Hafani, Hanafi, has never lived in Ossington Avenue, nor does he have any special attachment to that part of town. But he and his wife wanted something Toronto-specific in honor of a previous family dog who was the offspring of a well-known champion dog named Davenport. Hafani thinks the name Ossington suits him. "He's a very, very handsome dog," he said. "We wanted to have something that was a little bit more sophisticated." Bryce Doucette, Doucette, has a mini English Bull Terrier named Molson, partly because he was the size of a 6-pack of beer when he was named, and partly because he tried to chew the bottom of a can of Canadian when Doucette was having a few cold ones in the backyard. "He can sometimes be very naughty and find himself in trouble," Doucette said in a message, "but basically, all around, he's our house hippo." Desiree Sharpio, a dog walker in the beaches, simply adores Dolly Parton, so she named her Staffordshire Terrier mix after the timeless country music icon. It is only fitting. Dolly the dog is a rescue from Kentucky, so her name needed a touch of southern flair. She responds both to Dolly and Mrs. Parton and will sometimes howl along to Jolene. Dolly's not the only one named after the pop star. Kelly Barrett, who lives in Leslieville, has an 8-year-old terrier named Post Malone. "There's not one person who doesn't find it hilarious," Barrett said. She calls him Posty for short. While the star couldn't track their owners down, there were plenty of other oddball Toronto dog names. There's a Starbuck and 2 Roombas, but no Tim Horton. One dog is named Cold as Ice and another Tales of Joy. 2 dogs are named Cat. 5 dogs are named Dog. 1 is named Dog Meat. Food is a popular inspiration. There's gnocchi, tuberon, tomato soup, and corn. So to our locations. There are dogs named Finch, Spadina, Ontario, Toledo, and Tennessee. Some are puns. Ellie, Gator, Ask Him, Ask Her, and some are famous pop culture characters. Marty McFly, Jughead, McLovin, Adelpha. There are 230 Coopers. There's 1 Mini Cooper. For Hafani, Ossington's owner, he didn't want something common. There was a lot of Maxes and Fidos, he said, just like a lot of boring names that you hear all the time. He wanted something unique. Then came along Ossington. So Mark Coley is a Toronto-based general assignment reporter for The Star. You can reach him at his email, which is mcolley@THESTAR.ca. and you have been listening to a reading of articles and features from the March 23rd, 2026 issue of the Toronto Star. Your reader has been Judy, that's me, and I thank you for the honor of reading to you, and take wonderful care of yourselves, and I hope you have an amazing, wonderful day. Thank you so much.